Plymouth, Massachusetts, or as is tradition for everyone in America, Black Friday is happening. But this year, it ends in tragedy and a massive riot. A year later, someone is taking revenge and taking care of the people on that day, one by one. That's right, we're talking Eli Roth's newest film, Thanksgiving. I'm Caleb J.
I'm Josh Allred.
And welcome to First Thoughts. Alright, so like we said, top episode, we were talking about the newest Eli Roth, the long-awaited slasher film from his fake trailer back in 2007's, I believe, Grindhouse. And in a way, his long-awaited return to horror for a lot of us fans, or at least his style of horror that we know and love so much. But before we get into that, let's talk about the man himself and his prior career. I know, obviously, when Cabin Fever came out. I was a about teenager when he was first like coming up. Eli Roth with his stuff. I know you're a bit older than me by a decade. Let's put that out there. So yeah, starting there, kind of like, where do you stand on Eli Roth and his career, especially with him starting out?
I mean, if you hear the guy talk, he knows a lot about film and specifically horror and exploitation. He's a big fan of Italian genre cinema and really shows his intelligence when he is speaking. He's not just one of these film bros that only worships Scarface and shit like that. He's a very competent person. I think he was pigeonholed into horror, and rather than just stay there and kind of have a stifled career, he branched out, made some other things, and decided finally that he was ready to come back. And I think it was a good decision to make in terms of him actually wanting to make a horror movie again instead of feeling like he had to. And that time it took for him to come back around, I think really shows when I saw this last night. Even though this was an idea he's had since he was a kid, and finally getting to unleash that part of himself. He was very happy with what he got to do, and I think you can kind of feel the fun that he was having with Thanksgiving. And I've enjoyed his movies. Seeing Cabin Fever and the first two Hostel movies, and then Green Inferno, like he really does. He kind of like lets you know that he's one of you. He is a genre fan first and foremost. And so with those movies, he kind of came out swinging. Cabin Fever came out at a time when there wasn't a lot of movies like that, and he is always known for not pulling his punches when it comes to the content of his films. He also has a way of being kind of restrained and making a movie with almost no blood, like Knock Knock, and then going even further outside of that and showing his skills with A House with a Clock in Its Walls, making a pure Amblin style kids movie. So he definitely has a talent. He's earned that over the years. It's kind of crazy that the guy's been making movies and reality shows for the better part of 20 years. So he's definitely a more well-rounded filmmaker than you know somebody might have thought when he comes out with Cabin Fever in like 2000 or whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. This movie kind of felt like when James Bond came back with *Malignant*. Obviously, there was like a huge long gap in like him coming from like I think like the Conjuring films at that time, stuff ready to do blockbusters, and then doing *Malignant*. But you had that same feeling of like, hey, I want to come back to this. I want to do this. Like as soon as I told him like, hey man, we need a horror film from you. Like that's who you are. Like it was like, no, I'm doing this because I want to, and I'm coming back. And even like I know what Eli Roth he talked about on Postmortem, saying like I think he was kind of joking, but when he was talking about like, hey, I let them do their thing, I let them play, and he's like, I just wait long to be like, hey, I'm reminding you of who I am, and that hey, Eli Roth's back, and it was like, yeah, he is with this. Like he put his stamp, said, I essentially the whole Nicolas Cage thing, right? He never went away. He was just always there, and he decided now's the time to come out with this film finally. Everything just kind of aligned for him to do it. Because I mean, if for those who don't know, he was actually working on the Borderlands movie before this. Studios being studios, it technically should have been out this year, but they don't want to release it until next year. Big movie studios, whole different thing there. Um, but now I remember um, growing growing up, and when Cabin Fever came out, especially when Hostel came out, it was like again, it was that movie that everyone talked about. Like, dude, you think you saw it all and saw it? You got to go see Hostel, and it was like, what could be so bad about Hostel? And I remember I was so happy I saw that film alone. So I'm putting on going, there's a lot of sex in this movie. Did I put on a porn? And then when it makes that flip and that switch about an hour ish in, and it becomes like the torture, like, oh, okay, this is what everyone's talking about. But what I love is that like with he's always one of those I've loved watching behind the scenes stuff on because like you said, he's a fan, but he's also incredibly smart about this stuff. Like when people, to his credit, you don't have to like Hostel for its just abrasiveness and what it's showing you, or even Cabin Fever and stuff like that. But if you ask him like, hey, why were you making it the way you did? He'll have that answer for you like ready to go. Like, oh, this is why I was doing it. This is why I made it so extreme. Like he is very good at just saying like, yeah, you can say what you want about my movie, but this is why I did it. Um, and yeah, don't get me wrong. Like as a fan, when he kind of was like kind of stepping away and doing things like being in Inglorious Bastards, because he became good friends with Tarantino. He produced Hostel Part Two. I can't remember if he produced the first one.
I think it might have just been the second one.
Might have been the second one. He popped up in Inglorious Bastards as an actor, and then Eli Roth himself started producing a lot and giving a lot of younger filmmakers a chance. Another thing I actually really like about him is how very gracious he is about that. About like, hey, I've made a name for myself. I am who I am. Let me use that to get other people going. And he had those years where he was producing a lot more than he was directing. Obviously, the Travel Channel stuff he does now, but he'll back them and be like, hey, I like doing it. Let those younger guys get a chance. Like, I gotta respect that. Um, as much as I was like, man, come back to horror, I get why he did what he did. He, like you said, he wanted to stretch and show he was more than just the guy who gave us Hostel and Cabin Fever. He gave us House with a Clock in Its Walls and showed, hey, I can make a kids movie. Something that the whole family can watch. Even with Knock Knock, he kind of showed like, hey, I can make a horror film without the blood and guts and it still be pretty good. I defend Knock Knock. I know some people don't like it. I quite enjoy it. And even like Death Wish, it's not my favorite, but again, he showed he could play with quote unquote the big dogs, right? The bigger studios and know what an actor like Bruce Willis, and that's not me saying anything negative in any way about, but that's a big movie star at the time, and he was just kind of proving all these things. And then, like you said, finally saying like, "Hey, look, it's been long enough. I'm itching to do this. Idol finally. Let's do it." And we got what we have now. We're now in a year where I guess I don't know if it's because it's been 20 years. I don't know if like what's going on, but now Saw and now the new Saw and now this are critically acclaimed. Like even the critics are like, "Yeah, we like this."
I mean, everything is everything is cyclical. Um, Stuff falls out of favor. Um, Movies that were quote unquote dead and buried, 35, 40 years ago are still showing to be fruitful playgrounds for. I, I don't want to say it like this, but I think it's the only way I can think of it right now. Like people who know how to handle it. Um, One of the things that Eli Roth mentioned when he was talking to Mick Garris about it was knowing kind of what his reference points were for this movie. Mentioning like The Prowler and Happy Birthday to Me. These kinds of these kinds of movies that aren't always celebrated for what they are, um, but like the imagery of them has always been like very impactful. Um, and for him, it was a lot more of an aesthetic choice with certain things, with like kind of how um, Joseph Zito was shooting The Prowler, where a lot of the film has a lot of these greased up lenses that make everything look really soft and dreamy, and then you have that, undercut by Savini's fucking ultra violent fucking special effects.
Mm.
And then you have um, the ending of Happy Birthday to Me, which is, basically all of the guests of honor surrounding the table, and most of them are dead. That is echoed in this,
Mm.
and little things like that can can work for and against you. They can work for you in that you put them in there, and even someone who is jaded or is a very like studious observer of those kinds of films can look at it and go, "Oh, okay," but it's done just different enough that it's not just like some kind of ham-fisted like, "Hey, look, I watched this movie, guys."
Mm.
It can work against you when it just doesn't pull off or it feels out of place. And I think when you kind of borrow these kinds of things, you have to be very smart in what you're borrowing and how you're putting it into what you are going to do. And I even think of a movie like New Year's Evil, which he brought up with a lot of the other holiday horror movies that he liked, where the killer is kind of operating in plain sight, um, which it's different in this, in that you don't absolutely know who the killer is at the beginning of it, whereas in New Year's Evil you absolutely do know because you're traveling with them the entire time.
Mm.
But I think the fact that like a lot of the kills are happening like in front of people, and I think the thing that I really took away from this was just how much fun I had with this. I mean, I'm when I'm watching a movie in a theater, I'm reacting just the same way I would as if I was watching it at home. You know that.
Mm.
I'm not afraid to laugh at something or make a joke or whatever. And I think if you can see that even the more casual moviegoer is having those same reactions, that experience is a lot more universal than something that it's kind of like you're not in on the joke, and and you see a certain number of people laughing, but you just don't get it for whatever reason. The crowd that I had with me, they were definitely laughing a lot, um, and it wasn't like forced or anything like that. But I had moments where I was laughing for other reasons,
Mm.
you know, just for how ridiculous some of that stuff was. But then, like, even as horrific as some of the set pieces are, especially at the end, like it's done so over the top that you can't, like, that fear and that the scare of it doesn't last very long because it is just so ridiculous.
Mm.
And I think having that background in making those kinds of films, but also watching a lot of those films and coming at them from a place of reverence really allows him to have more freedom. And I think the things that he did leading up to making this movie and doing things like doing work as a producer, making, like you just mentioned, what I like to call your favorite background noise, all of Eli Roth's haunted pets and possessed
It
stationery
was
or whatever.
one possessed pet show. All right. Then you had Urban Legend. All right. A Ghost Ruined My Life. The Haunted Museum. And Legion of Exorcists. I don't need to justify this, okay? I enjoy them.
I'm not saying anything at all. I think the thing that I was most impressed with what he did in the time between horror movies was going out and doing a bit of activism in what he did with Finn.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't watched it, and it's not for like content reasons or feeling like I'll be shocked or whatever. It's just kind of the moment it came out, I never watched it, and it's just kind of always been one thing that I missed. Whatever. But I think the thing I come back to when I think about this movie is just how much passion he does have as a fan of genre films, and that always shows in their finished product versus somebody who takes it as a job for hire. So yeah, I mean, I'm yeah, I mean, I guess I could say I'm a little surprised at like a lot of the critical, appreciation of these kinds of things, mostly because it just never happens that way, and I really don't care to begin with, because even what little bit of criticism I've done in my own time and reading, reviews and things like that, I don't really care, because even if somebody can have a well-mannered argument for why a film didn't work for them, I'm still going to go see it if I want to see it. And I don't ever put that much stock in something that somebody says, because I mean, I've disagreed with plenty of, big names when it comes to movies, and it just shows that it really doesn't matter.
No, for me, like, at the end of the day, I'm gonna go see a film if I want to or not. I think it's just like after, like, and he kind of talks about it too with McGarris, where he, like, when he stepped away from horror for a bit, he had spent so long defending it and dealing with the critics at the time, that was like, he even said, like, I needed that break, I needed to step away, um, and flex his muscles and try some other stuff. That, yeah, after like decades of it being like, oh god, the hostel guy, oh god, the cabin fever guy, all of a sudden now everyone's like, oh, this is really good, I really like this. Like,
well, I think like in it's one of those things that's always known, but when you hear an established filmmaker like Mick Garris tell you, like, when you're in this business, you have to have skin as thick as a rhinoceros. Like, you can't take other people's opinions, which is all a critique is, or a film review or whatever. Like, it's just somebody's opinion. Like, you can't take it personally. And that's one of the hardest lessons to learn in any kind of creative outlet. And if you can't come to terms with that early on, you probably aren't built to pursue it, which sounds terrible, and like I would be discouraging people from doing that. But it's, to me, it's more just a fact. It's just one of these things where you are making yourself vulnerable whereby you're putting pieces of your personality into a character, or you're relating a life experience in a plot or something like that, and somebody looks at it and it's like, oh, that's fucking stupid, how would that happen, I would never be that dumb. And then you're like, but I mean, I was that dumb, I made those mistakes, and then you do feel like you have to defend it or whatever. And I think if you're young and you are confident enough to go and make something like Cabin Fever as your first movie, and you're kind of just like metaphorically throwing your dick out there and being like, what's up, here I am, and people don't like that, that confidence can get chipped away at pretty fucking quick. um, and being the kind of person that I am, always feeling like I have to explain why I like the things that I like, I always caveat that at the end with, yeah, I probably do like a lot of quote unquote terrible movies, but I can explain why I like them.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, if I can look at something that didn't have hundreds of millions of dollars in its budget, was panned by critics, barely made it out of a theatrical release, and died on like VHS or some shit, if I can find something of merit for me in it, that's all I care about. I think if you can find anything in a piece of art that makes you happy or you enjoy it, then that's all that matters at the end of the day. I don't give a fuck if my parents don't like the things that I like. I'm fine with that. Same thing with my kids. If they like something and I don't like it, like I'm if it makes them happy, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do feel like you have to constantly defend your your decisions and your passions in life, it can suck, and it can really eat away at you, and it can force you to just be like, you know what, fine, I'm going to spite all of you fucks, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to show you I'm way better than you ever thought I was. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate somebody like Eli Roth going in the directions that he did, because coming to this film, and he mentioned it, like the experiences he had acting allowed him to be a better director and communicate with actors for what he was looking for. Giving the actors references for films that he was thinking about during the production of Thanksgiving, and telling one of the actors, like, hey, I need you to watch this movie specifically for the expressions that this actor is using. The actor has no lines in this movie. Mute witness is what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And the actor has no lines in this movie. You see everything on their face. And giving that more or less as a challenge to younger actors who were eager to be there, wanted to learn, and were more than willing to take on the challenge and enjoy themselves, and allow themselves to be a lot more free than they would be if they were just, you know because I think one of the actors in there has like a big social media presence,
Mm-hmm.
and every time they were on set, their phone was nowhere to be found, and they were like, no, I want to be here, I want to be in this 100%. And that kind of dedication from a young person in the society that we live in now, where you can literally live stream your best and worst moments, to make the conscious decision to focus and be present in the moment that you're in, and not like have the feeling that you have to make a record of it that lasts forever on the internet. I think it's pretty impressive that Eli Roth at 51 can get people who are a few years older than his own son to go out there and actually like um be really good. And I mean, I couldn't tell you what any of these other actors did in other things, but I thought, for the most part, I mean, some of the dialogue was a little clunky, but like I was totally in the moment and just enjoying myself, so I wasn't really being that harsh on what I was seeing. But like, knowing the story of the production and the things that went on, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I mean, like, you can't go to a movie titled Thanksgiving about a guy wearing a pilgrim mask going out and killing people. You're not fucking going there for some like biting satire on the fucking struggle of capitalism and corporations against the people. Like, that's not
The
what you're there for. You're there to fucking see some people get chopped up, and you were promised a woman in an oven in the trailer, and damned if we didn't get a human fucking turkey. Like,
we got it.
let's fucking go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, please, just Just do that. Just do that. You promised those things in the trailer. Don't be a smart ass and fucking not show us that shit in the movie. Deliver on the goods. And he delivered on the goods. And I'll even say that fucking Patrick Dempsey, very surprised. Very surprised that he could do the things that he was doing in there. I mean, I don't want to like give away plot points or whatever, but he did a really good job. And you were even shocked to know that that was basically his real voice.
I was, because you remember, I only known the dude as essentially being McDreamy all my life because of fucking Grey's Anatomy. So how he talked on that show and anything I watched, I was like, oh, that's Patrick Dempsey. And when it was like, no, he actually, this is his actual voice because he's from Maine, so he has that accent. And I was like, oh, that's how he actually sounds. Um, no, look. This is a movie that the tagline is "There will be no leftovers." If you think you're going to get anything of like in quote unquote high art or the dreaded term elevated horror, you're in the wrong movie. You paid for the wrong movie because you're not getting that. You're getting what you said, a very fun, just good time. And as far as the dialogue thing, that's something that I just quickly bring up because I know obviously for years now everyone loves to come down on Eli Roth about his dialogue in a lot of his early films. And look, I'm gonna say right now, we were both alive and around during that era of life, that 2000s. I think we can both attest that I'm not saying it's good dialogue, but that is how a lot of dude bros that he was modeling a lot of those characters after talked back then. A lot of it hasn't aged well, obviously, but that is just how they talked back then. So if you don't like it, recommend then you just stay away from the phone if you're easily offended. But if you can just remember that, enjoy the movies.
Well, see, here's my thing about moments like that. Like, Eli Roth was closer in age to some of the characters in his early films, and he drew on a lot of personal experience from his own life in creating a lot of the characters that he was putting in his films. And part of why and it's a very like it's a very old tool that just writers in general use. Like, you make certain characters either complete assholes and totally unforgiving in how they treat other people in a story or a film, because you know that you're going to do something terrible to that person, and it makes the audience say, man, I wish that fucking guy would die. And then next thing you know, they're fucking strapped to a chair getting fucking operated on. Like, you do that intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And say what you want about things not aging well, like, that's always gonna fucking happen. It's always gonna happen. I mean, there are plenty of examples of things like that. You point to any fucking Friday the 13th movie, and you will find a character that is a total fucking asshole and a total, like, just would not, they would get canceled nowadays. And that's just, yes, it's a product of the time, but two, it's also done with intention to make those characters, like, you have to engage with them on some
Mm-hmm.
level. Like, if they're just there and they're like two-dimensional and they don't fucking do anything for you, they're a waste. They're just fucking there to get killed. But if you create some kind of engagement, whether that's disgust or you laugh at them or you are genuinely rooting for them, then that's effective. And I think a lot of people have a hard time thinking, just thinking that critically for half a second and going, well, they probably did this for a reason, but they don't. They just, everybody wants to feel like there's some fucking virtuoso white knight fucking riding in and being like, I just will not stand for this kind of thing in my cinema. Like, shut the fuck up. You are not that important. You are not that fucking holy. Kiss my ass and just have fun. Because if you are reacting to the thing that you are consuming, a song, a TV show, a fucking painting, whatever, art is made to elicit emotion at its most basic function. And if you ain't getting shit out of it, then it's either a you thing or it's the arts thing. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm off my fucking soapbox.
No, I'm with that. I just want to get that covered. 'Cause, look, films are time capsules. They will always be time capsules of the time they came out. So, like, nothing was ever going to age well because things we thought were okay to say back then, obviously, things, lingo changes, slang changes, it eventually becomes not okay. It's just how life is. It's how this all works. With that, I do know, um, what Eli said for this movie, he like you said, obviously is 51. He does not talk like a teenager. He is a middle aged man. It wasn't on the postmortem, but he did interviews with Bloody Disgusting before this film released, and they asked him, how did you get the dialogue to sound authentic? And he's like, well, I have friends that have 16, 17-year-old kids. And he would show them the script and parts of the dialogue and be like, hey, read this, tell me how you would say it. And he would take what they would say and put it into the script. So then the dialogue between the younger cast would be authentic. So again, he's doing better than what I think some directors do, because you don't really hear that a lot. I know a lot of directors are like, well, I know how to write for a teenager, and it's like, no, you're middle age, you don't know how to write for a teenager.
And I mean, and even if you do have a window into teenage thought and stuff like that, your only frame of reference for that is either if you are doing actual study on how the youth at the time that you're trying to set your story speak, or you're drawing on your own experience. Because I know I would definitely write younger actors, well, characters the same way I would have spoken. Like your only frame of reference is to do that, and it's not like you can have anything else in your fucking head. And I think he, for a movie that was, contemporarily set, it was it was handled pretty well, I would think, in terms of how, social media was there in that world, but it wasn't like a main component of the narrative. I mean, it was, but not in the sense that like people were always stuck in their phones and shit like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they felt like, and again, it probably has to do with his method to do it. They felt like authentic teenagers, um, for a more contemporary setting. Um, with that, I think it's time to have a little bit of fun and talk about the film proper and scenes we like and stuff like that. The kills, all that good stuff, the nitty gritty of the film. And I think there's no better place to start than this opening sequence. Wow, does Roth just completely, in my opinion, like, and you talked about in the postmortem podcast, just up in what you think a cold open for a slasher is going to be, from the having the fake out with the POV. Again, him being like, hey, I know you guys who are watching this know what I'm doing. Watch me trick you. And then you find out, oh, it's not who we think in the POV. And then the Black Friday scene, that it's like this masterclass to me in just building and building and building. I know we were talking about earlier. You said you had it. It almost got dangerous close to going on for a bit too long. But and then I said, like, I do see where you're coming from. But I think had it not had the payoff that it had, then yes. But I think he did such a good job of just cock teasing you, for lack of a better term here, that when he gave you that payoff, it was so worth it.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was definitely very very much a more gruesome version of what you see in the opening of Krampus. And for me, having seen uh, the reality of things like that on the news when I was a kid, and seeing parents beat each other senseless for fucking Cabbage Patch dolls, like, it's not that far removed from what the reality is. Now it might not be as cutthroat because everybody fucking shops online, so it's, you can sit in your underwear and fucking hit up Black Friday sales and not ever leave your house. But for those events that are still handled in a way that, you know, people are going to be thrust into close quarters together, it was it was it was set up pretty well. And I don't know if it, well, no, I do know, for me at least, it was the glut of masshole accents that really kind of made it for me, you know, because like you see like this young girl arguing with the waitress at the diner, you know, and just like, oh, fucking knock your head off, kid, and oh no, fuck you, like just those little moments were really fucking funny to me. And I would I would like to think that uh, Adam Green was really just enjoying that moment, and in the back of my head, I could just hear him saying, "Fucking." Yeah, I was literally waiting for somebody to like smash somebody in the face with their fucking iced coffee from Dunkin'. That's
Oh,
that like that probably would have made it that much sweeter.
I'm sure if they had the budget, just put that in there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, God, between the accents and then like I made a comment like it's like you said, it really to me didn't even feel that exaggerated in how Black Friday goes. I personally have never taken part on Black Friday, never will. Especially now that Cyber Monday is a thing anyway. So why? Or actually, it's Black Friday online nowadays.
Yeah.
Amazon literally is doing theirs right now. Um, but just the insanity, like there's always something that like these seeing these kind of scenes really gets me because you just see to me like the worst part of humanity from like them trampling over the security guard with no care on the board. The guy literally that cuts his neck and still continues to go get his thing.
He needed that waffle iron, dude.
He wanted it so bad, and he is dying. And the fact that no one cares, like someone takes it from him, he's dead. They don't care.
Well, and that was one of the instances where I think the use of social media was handled really well, like how that was turned around and we laughed at it yet again because like we laugh at it in the moment. You
Mm-hmm.
see a dude fucking dying on a pallet fucking with a death grip on a waffle iron and he fucking just gets it yanked from him, and then you see on the video replays the character Evan, he fucking throws it, no waffle iron for you, bitch. Just it's like that kind of reaction would have been somebody just watching that. That's what they would have said, you know. So it's just like these layers of things
Mm-hmm.
that are happening throughout the whole fucking thing, up to and including like somebody, no shit, like actually getting fucking their head fucking smashed in with a fucking shopping cart, like just all of these little moments, you know, like it's it's the thing you think about in your head when you think about people being idiots on Black Friday, you know, like they're so careless and so laser focused on getting the one thing that they came in there for that they will literally run over somebody's grandma just to fucking get that fucking TV, or you know, I gotta be the first one of the first 100 fucking guys in there. I gotta get that fucking waffle maker. Like,
God.
just fuck me, man.
Oh, Jews and God, when she got hit with that, and then like Roth again, and it was like a taste of the kind of kills we're going to get in this film. You any other direction be like, okay, that's it, she got hit with it. No, he's like, oh yeah, it also got stuck on her hair, and now it's going to partially scalp her, and it's like, oh God.
And you connect the dots, like you're seeing them struggle, and then he shows you her hair's caught, and you're just like, something's gonna happen here, and you could just see it just slowly peeling off, and then you just, I was just like, oh my fucking god, I was laughing when that show's fucking happening. And
Oh yeah.
maybe I'm a terrible person, and that's fine. You
No.
know, I've come to terms with it, and if that means I die alone, I die alone. That's fine. But I'll still be able to enjoy movies like this.
Roth has always had a streak of dark humor in his film, so it had a dark humor element to it. As like brutal as it was, there was a dark, like honestly, like there was a death that I definitely got a good laugh, and it was the trash can death. It was like the punchline. You could tell that was the punchline, and I just was like, "Ha! I see what you did there."
So
Um,
I got a question. Um, Cabin Fever, of course, has the memorable moment about pancakes. Waffle Iron, here in this, is the next horror movie he makes. Is he gonna have crepes be part of a joke
I hope so. And I hope it's the kid from Cabin Fever grown up.
instead of pancakes? Crepes.
Crepes. Oh God.
We're
Uh,
asking you, Eli Roth. Next horror movie, you got to throw crepes in there.
just make it the whole movie somehow. Ah, but yeah. So we get this really, I think, yeah, amazing opening like sequence, and then we cut to 1 year later, and we have the some of the teenager groups that feel bad, not all, like Evan, who we talked about earlier, right? You make that character that's an asshole. It's Evan. They went out of the way to make sure he was an asshole. So what happens to him later is just finally
Well,
nice.
he's the kind of guy that like will never turn down an opportunity to just take the piss out of any fucking situation that he's in. And he even says it too while he's watching this mayhem unfold. He's like, "This is gold. This is fucking gold." Like, he's admitting that even he can't not watch this fucking train wreck happen.
Mm-hmm.
He's very excited about it.
Oh yeah.
And when you meet him, Jess, and his girlfriend again, and she's like showing him that somebody is tagging them in this video, he's like, "Oh, what? Oh, I'm not gonna apologize for this again. What the fuck? Blah blah blah." Like
Mm-hmm.
he's so butthurt that like people keep coming at him for a very tasteless moment, of course, but
Yeah.
it's what almost 95% of the internet is.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting for him to like scream fucking world star or some shit.
Oh
Just
yeah. Just something.
yeah.
Um. Yeah. So like obviously we catch up, and what I love is like again you think like okay and again and this may have just been because of like Green Inferno. I was like, okay, Roth, you had a great opening. Don't Green Inferno me, and like blow your wad early, man. Um. He does not. The first, like, I guess you could say proper death by the John Carver with the waitress lady. Oh my God, does it deliver on like everything? And that moment, and you're like, oh yeah, we're prime. Let's go. We're gonna get some really. It almost felt like Terrifier. Like these just amazingly nice, drawn out to the point that you just can't believe. You should start laughing. Because I know, like you said, my audience had the same reaction when I went, which same thing when we saw Terrifier 2, the audience had the same reaction of like eventually you just have to laugh at how like just long these scenes are in the death and what Roth is just delivering throughout the whole thing for each death scene.
Yeah. I mean, it's taken to that level of excess because that's what a lot of slashers from the 80s were all about. I mean, they were always excessive. And I think as filmmakers have gotten more, adept, especially if they're fans of those kinds of movies and they're good filmmakers in their own right, they're able to kind of exploit those for, a much bigger payoff. I mean, like one of the things that comes to mind, and it's not even like the same style of movie, but like Edgar Wright making Shaun of the Dead and essentially making his version of a Romero movie. It is, even though George Romero was never afraid to go far, he found moments to go farther. And they were just as absurd. And I appreciated that. Just like I appreciated, the things that Eli Roth was doing with this movie. Um, and again, you're not going to this movie to see something that is going to stir your emotions and really make you think when you leave the theater. Like this is pure fucking just sleaze and cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Like lap it up, gorge yourself, and have fun.
Yeah, have
And
a
it keeps happening over and over and over again, and up until the point where like the the deaths start to involve characters that you're as a as the viewer more a lot more sympathetic to. You know, they as the stakes are raised, you they have more of an impact. I think the only one that didn't impact me as much was the stepmom, um, or fiance, whatever. But how she got it, I was like, I was rooting for that bitch to get caught so fucking fast. Like she
God.
kept like it was just this long drawn out
Every
cat
time
and
he
mouse
showed the
game.
scene of
Oh
like the killer not looking at her and
yeah,
she is like sneaking out, I was like, oh, he's gonna fucking turn around.
which is so funny because that's set up prior to that in all the other kills where he's hanging out in the background and all of these other kills that he does. It's like just intentionally like Roth is intentionally messing with you and showing you that like yeah like this guy's fucking smart, what the fuck is going on, you know, but then he's also like, well, yeah, he's not as smart as as I want you to think he is. um and that is even played up throughout the movie. um Even though at the time they're kind of throwaway lines, but then they're turned around on you later when the big reveal happens, and you're like, oh shit, it was fucking right there in front of me the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and you just take it for granted, you know, because I started spinning my own wheels and figuring out who was who and thinking like, I'm pretty sure I have a good read on who it is, and I was like, oh fucking course it is. Oh, of course it is. Like,
Yeah.
why didn't I just fucking take the obvious? But that's the thing. Like, if a filmmaker knows what you're thinking or the way that they're setting characters up, it's it he's doing it on purpose. And I think making the decision to not just try and like stitch in a narrative between what he shot for the trailer,
Mm-hmm.
smart idea. I mean, even the philosophy behind that, like saying that, you know, Thanksgiving was released in 1980. Studio didn't want it to come out. They destroyed every print. The only thing that exists now is the trailer. This is the reboot. I'm like, there you go. There you go. Like, even within his own his own little world, he's managed to reboot his fake trailer that was just an idea he had as a 12-year-old kid with a buddy of his, and then come back around and decide to go, I'm gonna reboot this idea. I'm gonna take some of the things I really love, find a way to get them in there, but then also make this a more contemporary story with contemporary characters and still find a way to make you feel like you're watching a movie that would have existed 30 fucking plus years ago.
Yeah. And even crazier is that it was a trailer that he filmed on the back end of Hostel Part 2. Like he was still filming Hostel Part 2, went to go do the trailer, and finished filming Hostel Part 2. So not that it was like an afterthought trailer, but like, that's the insane part of all that too, is that he did it real quick and then went back to what, he was mainly working on at the time. Um and actually, speaking of which, that's another thing I really liked about this film was like, you know, obviously there's plenty of people that went into this probably not knowing about the trailer, right? But then there were plenty of people like us who saw Grindhouse, who saw that trailer, were like, oh man, when are we going to get this movie, right? How he repurposed the deaths, the death scenes, or the kill scenes from the trailer into here. I think the only one that wasn't in here was the blowjob beheading, as I've called it. Where in the trailer, it's Eli Roth actually is getting a blowjob, and then he gets his head cut off as she's going to town. Um, I'm sure that's probably because the MP would have a field day, um, with that. But how he got everything else, like the trampoline, which really makes no sense. But at that point, like you're watching, like you said, like the most purest '80s slasher released in 2023, and I've seen plenty of those. You've seen plenty of those. There's plot points that never seem to make sense in those movies, and you just go with it. Um, but how he was able to get all those and repurpose it, like like I said, like one of the things from the trailer was in the trampoline scene, she jumps onto the knife straight up, vagina first. How he redoes that, where like we still get that ode in the movie, but then we get the trampoline scene and he completely like redoes how it was done. It's like he's rewarding you. Like, hey, you think you know how you're going to get this because you saw my trailer. No, I'm changing the script on you. I'm going to give it to you in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and again, you get a character death just before that with that jock asshole literally gets his head fucking turned around. You know, like those little things that like you're just like that's fucking ridiculous. You know, I'm pretty sure that's not how it happens. I don't know. Maybe there's a doctor that can fucking tell me that actually, yeah, you can get your head turned around like that. So be it. But it is just ridiculous enough. And how absurd that those things happen and the characters in there just don't even fucking notice. Like, it's those little bits of absurdity that if you're trying to be nitpicky about it, you know, you're like, oh, it just took me out of the movie, whatever. Like, nah, man, like you have gotten to this point where you literally watched a dumpster lid chop a lady in half. When's the last time that fucking happened? Never is when that happened. But because you're taken on this ride where anything and everything can happen to people. And certain characters are set up to be complete fucking disgusting human beings, and then they turn out to actually not be. You know, they're kind of like the people you want to have on your side. And I even thought it was a throwaway moment when that guy McCarty gave Jess that ring, and lo and behold, it actually came of use. And I was like, son of a bitch, like you did it to me again, you know? Like here I am just taking something for granted. You motherfucker. Like
You know, with that character, and even her dad, when she finally stepped up and was like, we're listening to my daughter, I was like, oh shit, okay. I was like, Dad's stepping up. Here we go.
yeah, yeah. And that's again, you know, whereas if this was something that was made in the 80s, those characters would probably be a little more two dimensional and be very like archetypal. You know, the dad would have been a total douchebag and he would have ended up dying. And I think the fact that there are a lot more survivors in this does make this a little bit different than you know um, your typical output from that time frame, and it makes the story have a little more satisfying resolution. I'll say, even though it does get a very typical, you know, we didn't find no body type ending. Even though Eli Roth himself is very satisfied with this being the only one,
Mm.
he's still doing the thing that all of these movies do, where maybe he's not dead. Even though you just saw a very definitive way that somebody could have died. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't.
Maybe he, changed out the body. Looking at you, Michael. Um, yeah, no, and it's one of those things where like you could easily, if you want to be that guy, right, that contrarian, nitpick all this stuff. Like, oh, they wouldn't actually survive this. Oh, they can't turn the head around like that. Oh, the boat won't actually slam into the driver's head. Which I'm not gonna lie, dark humor at its finest.
Oh yeah,
When that,
he fucking looked like fucking Pinocchio, man.
yeah, and I didn't realize those were the daughters in the car
Oh
next to
yeah.
him until he started screaming. I was like, and that's when I was like, oh, that's funny. I was like, I shouldn't be laughing, but that's fucking funny.
Well, not only that, like the blood is just like, you know, just comically getting sprayed on them, and you're just like, God damn it! Like, yes, I am still having fun with this, and it's like taking you on this little fucking roller coaster. You know, like you're getting on there, and it's like, you know, something's gonna happen, but it doesn't happen the way you think it's gonna happen, and he's smart enough to kind of lead you around, but he's ultimately in control of the entire situation, even in this whole maddening scenario where you have all these dudes wandering around in fucking John Carver masks and fucking pilgrim hats and shit. And you're like, oh, no, he's definitely going to be there, just, in plain sight of everybody. Of course he's going to be just like that, blending in with the crowd. And you're like, yeah, he was actually blending in a lot more than you thought he was. And that was a perfect way to fucking do things. And I really appreciated that. And up to and including like in the whole finale where characters were set up to be to take the blame for all that stuff, but that plan doesn't work. It's always the small details, that's where they slip up.
Yeah.
Which is a line from the movie and very emblematic of how things finally come together for Jess as she's really figuring out what's going on and who's behind all of this. And he being Eli Roth found a way to continue to up the ante and continue to really go for broke. It, I, I think if this movie didn't have things constantly raising in terms of the escalation to the finale, I think it could have fallen flat, and people were like, well, this movie's really only going to get remembered for the fucking dinner scene. It absolutely should be, because it's a fucking horrifying fucking reveal for what happens and what is like implied to happen in that scene.
The human turkey to what happens to one character.
I was waiting for fucking for Jess's dad to fucking just get force fed that shit.
Oh god.
It doesn't happen, but that's me rooting for it and it not happening. Again,
we do get an interesting Hostel connection. Because for those who probably wondering, why does Jess's dad look really familiar, especially longtime Eli Roth fans, watch the first Hostel.
He was one of my favorite characters in that whole thing, because he was way too excited about doing that shit.
Yeah.
And then to be on the flip side of that is very well done, and to have an actor to go back to on that kind of thing, and kind of I'm absolutely would not be surprised to find out that he was game to do that, kind of take a different role that than people would be expecting, because he does have one of those faces that, like, when he's smiling, you just know some dirty things are running through this guy's mind. But in this, he's just a terrible businessman who's really only focused on making a lot of money, and only when shit gets really close to home does he actually, fucking come to his senses and realizes that, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be fucking exploiting these people, and try and fucking, operate with some level of common sense and decency.
Instead of hiding the security footage so you don't get lawsuits.
Yeah.
But, unless we have anything more to add, we're at a point we should gotta get ready to wrap this up.
I mean, I think if people are still on the fence about going to see this, like, just go. Like, all you need to get buttered up, pun intended, you'll find out, buttered up for this is to just watch the trailer and go see it. Like, just go there, go to have fun, and you won't be disappointed. Not least of which is the fact that we've gotten not one, but two holiday fucking slashers at a point when I don't even remember the last time that happened. So enjoy that. If you're a horror fan, go out there, go see this movie. Make sure you're taking that family member that you don't like and sit right next to him, and then stare at him at the dinner scene and be like, that's going to be you if you fucking keep talking shit at the fucking dinner table. And just enjoy yourselves. I mean, and you might actually get a little souvenir. Caleb and I got posters. I mentioned it out on Twitter last night when I was going. Somebody somewhere else, they were handed fucking John Carver masks. So these nice little promo items and stuff are getting sent out with this kind of stuff, and it's just a nice little thing to kind of get a treat for going to see a movie in a theater. Not that I need them, but they're nice little perks. And as if I need another poster to worry about buying a frame for, now I do. So yeah, go out there, go see it in a theater. Um, if you can't, rent that shit. Like, I think this is going to be one of those movies that makes its way because we did have Blood Rage. Yes, there was Thanksgiving. I think this is probably going to be one of the uh, immediate entries into the rotations for fucking holiday horror movies. And dare I say, it's the definitive Thanksgiving horror movie. Um, just because it is like so explicit, the the theme of it and everything, it's really used to great effect. And I'm sorry if you have a Thanksgiving slasher movie and the killer is a fucking pilgrim, you probably won that competition. So kudos to Eli Roth and the whole team for making that. So yeah, check that shit out.
Yeah, I concur with that. For anyone that does care, I gave this a 4 out of 5 on my letterbox. I'm absolutely in love with it. It's a fun movie. You're going to have a good time. I'm 100% agreeing that yes, this is already right up there with Blood Rage. I think I even said it like right up there with Blood Rage is in my rotation already. Um, it Roth set out to make a Thanksgiving horror film, and he fucking did it. And he delivered on the goods. He doesn't pull back. It is the Roth that if you since Hostel Part Two were like, man, we were gonna get that Roth back. He was never gone. We reference that he was never gone, but he did fucking come back in full force for this film, and it was glorious to behold. So go watch it, see it in the theaters, have a good time, and yeah, if you can't, rent it. But this is a great film. With that though, tune in the next time we have first thoughts. I'm not quite sure what new film coming out we were going to do that on. I know it's getting to the award season, so that will be a little more up Connor and Austin's alley, or Adams even actually. Um, but tune in the next time we have first starts, and until then, keep watching movies.